Good afternoon. Teresa Nystrom, Math04 instructor. I'm going to work through some of the exam review problems with you that tend to cause Math04 students some difficulty. I thought a good one to start with would be 1A, since it involves fractions, and most students don't like to work with fractions when they're working math problems. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute 1/3 into the parentheses that cover 7x minus 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply 1/3 times 7x. I'm multiplying a fraction by a whole number. The rule is multiply the numerator by the whole number. That gives me 7 over my denominator of 3, still times x. Subtract. Again, I'm going to multiply the numerator times the whole number. 1 times 4 is 4 over my denominator. Now the way to think of that is I could have called that 7 over 1 and said numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. I would have gotten the same thing. Okay, now I don't need to distribute the 1/3 to the x over 2 because x over 2 is not inside those parentheses. So it's just minus x over 2 equals, again, I'm going to do the numerator times the whole number. Well, what is the whole number in front of that x? It's an understood 1, so I have 5 times 1 is 5 over my denominator of 6 times my x. Minus, again, numerator times whole number, 5 times 2 is 10, over my denominator of 6. So now, I have distributed what was outside my parentheses, gotten rid of all those grouping symbols. The next thing I want to do is get rid of those fractions, because we know you don't like to work with fractions, so let's take a moment and just get rid of all of them in our very next step. In order to do that, I need to know what my common denominator is. My least common denominator is what I can multiply through the entire equation by to get rid of my fractions. So I have to look at what my denominators are. I have a 3, I have a 2, and I have a 6. I'm looking for the number that all three of those divide into. As a matter of fact, the lowest number that all three of those divide into, and that would be 6. 6 is divisible by 6, it's divisible by 2, and it's divisible by 3. So that's what I want to multiply my entire equation through by, the number 6. And now I'm going to do the same thing I did in that first step. I'm going to multiply this by this fraction, but I can look at it a little differently. I can say 6 times the numerator of 7, which is 42 over 3, but that's a reducible fraction and that's extra work. So instead of doing it that way, we want to say 3 divides into 6 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14x. Got rid of the fraction right away like that. I didn't have to try to figure out how 42 divided by 3. So again, bring down my subtraction. 3 divides into 6 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. No denominator anymore. Minus 2 divides into 6 3 times. 3 times x is 3x. Equals, still doing, remember, the entire equation by that 6. So now 6 divides into 6 one time. 1 times 5 is 5 times my x. Bring down my minus. 6 divides into 6 one time. 1 times 10 is 10. Now I have eliminated all of my denominators, and I have a problem that's much easier to solve because I don't have to work with fractions anymore. So now I go to the left-hand side of my equal sign and I combine my like terms. I have a 14x and a negative 3x. That makes 14x minus 3x, which is 11x minus 8. Not like terms, so I can't combine those, of course. And on the right-hand side, I don't have any like terms. I have 5x minus 10, so I'm just going to write that down. Now, the next step is to move your 5x over to the left-hand side, because if we're going to solve for x, we need to have them all together. We always do that with opposite operation. 5x was positive, so I subtract it. Anything I do to the right-hand side of the equation, I have to do to the left-hand side of the equation. The 5x minus 5x canceled out. That's what we were attempting to have happen there. Get rid of our variable on the right-hand side. I'm left with just a negative 10. Over here, 11x minus 5x is 6x, and bring down my minus 8. Again, remember, our goal here is to solve for x, so I need to move the 6 away and the 8 away. Of course, I move the 8 first. using the opposite operation, so I'm going to add it over to the other side. And now on the right-hand side, negative 10 plus 8 gives me negative 2. The negative 8 and the positive 8, of course, cancel each other out, and I'm left with 6x. Almost the last step here. I divide both sides by 6. On the left-hand side, it cancels out, and I'm left with just x. And on the right-hand side, I have negative 2 over 6, but of course that's not in reduced form. I want it to be in reduced form. So I reduced 2 over 6 to 1 over 3, and that's my final answer. And I only had to deal with fractions in my top 2 steps. After that, I was just dealing with whole numbers. Much easier problem to solve.